Okay, our next topic is discovery groups. So our goal is not to disciple individuals, our goal is to disciple groups. And that is because groups remember more than individuals, they learn faster, they replicate faster, it provides protection against bad leadership, and it helps keep each other accountable. And what's also good is that people can do it together, that a person in a community, they're not the only person learning about Jesus, that they can do it in a group. And so we're going to talk about what does it look like to have these discovery groups. So a discovery group is basically a Bible study. The disciple maker, so our role, we do not give answers when studying the Bible. Instead, we ask questions because we want them to learn for themselves, learn how to go to Scripture and find answers themselves. If a false belief arises, which is likely to happen, the disciple maker points the group to a Bible passage that addresses that belief and asks the group what it means. And so we teach them to self-correct from Scripture. What's really important is how we want the group to function for the next 2 years is established within the first 3 or 4 meetings. And it's not established by us telling them what to do. It's established by us modeling, us doing it ourselves for them. And so we lead the first 3 or 4 groups. And what should that look like? We need to start off the group by asking things like, what are you thankful for this week? What has stressed you out this week? Or what do you need for things to be better? What are the needs of the people in your community? How can we help each other with the needs we expressed? What did we talk about last week? Did you change anything in your life as a result of last week's story? Did you get a chance to share the story with the person that you identified who needed to hear it? And say, we talked about needs last week. How did it go? How did meeting those needs go? And so those are the questions you ask to review from what you talked about last week. And then for the new week, you need to say, let's read this week's passage. And so you read the passage, and then you ask for someone in the group to tell the story of the passage in their own words. And then you ask the group if there was anything that they would like to add, or if there was anything that the person left out. And so once the group has shared what they think the passage, or they retold the passage in their own words, you need to ask some more questions. First, what does this passage teach us about humanity? What does this passage teach us about God? What if we believe this passage is from God, how must we change? And then finally, who are you going to share this passage with this week before we meet again? So there's 4 questions we want to ask from the Bible passages. What does this tell us about God? What does this tell us about humanity? What do we need to change in our lives because of this? And then who do we need to tell? And then finally, the last thing you ask is, when do you want to meet again next? And so after the first 3 or 4 times in which you lead the group in this, a leader should be identified. It might not be the person of peace that brought you to the group. It might be someone else. So we need to train this person, this leader, on how they can start leading the discovery group. First thing is on a piece of paper, add 3 columns. On the first column, you want them to write out the passage straight from the Bible. When you write things down, you tend to remember it better. So in the first column, you want to write down the story straight from the passage. This may take a few days to do, depending on how long the passage is. The second column is we want them to write the passage in their own words. And then in the third column, We want them to write out what should change in your life because of this passage. And then there's also an acronym they need to apply. It's SPEC is the word. The S stands for, is there a sin to avoid? P, is there a promise, a prayer, or a praise in this passage? E, is there an example to follow or not to follow? C, is there a command to obey? K, is there knowledge that I need to retain from this passage? And so once they've done the 3 columns and they've applied the questions from SPEC, S-P-E-C-K, to the passage, they're ready to lead the group. And that is how we train them to become a leader, to be able to facilitate these discovery groups.